5:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone who's also watching from home. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVore?
Present.
Trustee Gatt?
Present.
Trustee Kazam?
Present.
Trustee Reichert? Present. Trustee Wigginton?
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Present.
Just a reminder to the Board of Trustees, we have had some issues with people being able to hear us, especially in the audience, so please try to be conscious of that and speak into the microphone. I hear the HVAC tonight, and it is a little loud, so thank you all. Next is approval of the Board of Trustees minutes from February 20th, 2024. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. We'd be at comments from the audience on agenda items only. If you'd like to address the board, please come forward to the podium, give your name and address, and try and keep your remarks under 5 minutes. Anyone here tonight to address the board? Okay. Public comments going once, twice. Comments are closed. We'd be at old business. Any old business come before the board?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I want to point out that Chief Deckard is here with us tonight. I know we've talked at our last session regarding, it was a Saturday session, 3-hour Saturday session, just to show this board's dedication. But we had gone over the budget, and I know that there were some trustees that had some questions regarding public safety budget, particularly the fire department. So I appreciate Chief being with us tonight, and I didn't know if this is the best time, but I know we've covered the budget before, so I wanted to acknowledge his presence here, and hopefully he can answer any questions that the fellow trustees may have.
I'm okay if you'd like to get into that now. It is old business, so is there something you'd like to ask or discuss?
Well, again, I know, Chief, there were some questions, and I'm just kind of conveying, if any other trustees want to add some specifics, but there were some questions, I think, regarding staffing and what our, I think, salaries from some of the, I don't know if you were made aware of some of the concerns that came up.
I sent an email to everybody, and I'm happy to speak in open session, happy to meet with all individuals, individually if you'd like. But I met with a couple already, and I appreciate that. We had a great training this weekend that I was able to meet with a couple out there as well while watching that. But if there are any questions, I'll give you my honest facts as I have them.
Trustee Wigginton, to your point, I was one that had questions. I had met today with Chief Decker, but I would prefer all of us meet with him prior to opening questions, because he answered a few of the questions I had today. And I don't believe everyone's met with you yet. So I do have some additional questions, but I would like for all the trustees to at least meet with Chief Decker and kind of understand where he's at with the budget, why those numbers are what they are, before we can have any productive conversations regarding those numbers.
That's a good idea, and I've said to you, Trustee Weisenberg, and I think Trustee Wigginton as well, I'm open if you decide you would like a special meeting dedicated further to the budget. I'm open to that, so please let me know.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so after we talked the other day, I did get that comparison of the averages. So I think when I came up in the number in my mind, what we were thinking of paying as the salary number was I took the number budgeted divided by 3, which I think took us to $88,000. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. 80,000 is what we were planning to
80,000.
start.
Okay.
And I guess just to give an idea, it was hours and hours trying to work toward the right number. I believe that's the right number. but it has to be some sort of an educated guess because we have one shot. We
Sure.
do a testing process, and I'm trying to hopefully attract skilled, somewhat seasoned people that at least been inside of a house fire, because on day one, that position is going to be a captain position or whatever we want to title it, captain, lieutenant. But it's not the typical new hire of a fire department. A new hire is, jokingly, someone that come stay quiet and just do what they're told, but not in this case. When I'm not here and they're on a call, essentially they speak for the village in those instances. There are a lot of team around them. I mean, our officers are great and they respond often as well. But that was my my plan, to hire someone with experience. So came up with that number. I do have a list of comparables I'd be happy to share.
I have it. You did send me that one.
And I'll give them to everybody. Actually, I have enough copies. I'll give them to you if you'd like.
Do you think it would be beneficial for the people here tonight and the people at home just to quickly say what your plan is, what your proposal is?
The plan was, I guess, one of my biggest concerns when I came to Peoria Heights was the recognition that there are times we have single members responding to incidents by themselves. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And that is something just I laid awake just thinking about that. Because even though we have SOPs, we have rules in place that would not allow a firefighter to make entry into a structure fire by themselves. I guarantee you that, and I'll speak for myself, that if I, or I know Matt is here often, if he were to show up and there is somebody inside, it's in our nature, we would not just stand outside and wait for someone else to come. So my goal was to get a minimum of at least 2 people leaving on every incident. That's not the NFPA standard. In fact, they would be angry if I was promoting 2 people. But understanding budgets and recognizing that we can't increase to the point at which we can't afford it, I tried to look at what is the minimum that we can do. So that was my goal. Working within the money that we spoke about a couple months ago, realized that we could hire one, I believe, seasoned person for each day, so 3 people total. And then the other position, we have a lot of volunteers who are eager to be involved. And we provided an opportunity of a stipend position for 24 hours, whether they do 24s or they break it into 12s or whatever. But it would give them an opportunity to be paid a little bit to stay at the station to run on a 2-person engine. That does a couple things. Number one, if you remember one of our first conversations, the concern for integration, making sure that the volunteers work well with the full-time staff, this does help to alleviate that because it at least puts a little bit of money into the pockets of the volunteer. And they also, these are people that more than likely want to be in that full-time position. Another thing we've kind of stumbled across is that it's creating a camaraderie. There are people that accept those stipend positions, and there are other volunteers that tend to come volunteer for free, staying. We had an evening a couple weeks ago where we had 7 people overnight, which is incredible because what that would mean is if we would have received a structure fire that night, that would have been an engine and a truck staffed. You won't find many departments around here that would have that. I'm not sure we find any. But it would be so with just 2 people being paid. That being my goal, I tried to look at what is the minimum we could do to accomplish that goal, and that's how I arrived at it. I'm not going to sit here and say that that's all we need to do, but I at least feel comfortable not being here, knowing that there's at least 2 people going on every incident.
I have a follow-up question to that. So is there a max number of, amount of people that can sign up for the stipend shift? So you said there were 7 people here, so are some of them just here on a volunteering basis and we're stipending 1 or 2 of them? How does that work?
Only 2 were being paid.
Okay.
The others, and part of my larger plan, it'd take a while to explain it, but each of the full-time people, when we do have them, I want to establish 3 different companies in the department. Each of the full-time personnel being over or work along with the company. Work in training. I have ideas about using the training tower, and we had the training this weekend, but if companies can work together, train well, that will promote a healthy environment where they would all work together. That's my goal, and that's what I'm hoping happens. So as far as who gets paid, it will only be the full-time person, and we talk about the future, the full-time person and then 1 person on stipend. But my hope is, I'm going to try to work with ICC as well to get those college students who want to be part of the fire service, if they're wanting to join a volunteer fire department, join this one. Mm-hmm. And then they can study here, they can be with others who, if they're, whatever, young, single, or have time to dedicate, they can be here and be in a learning environment, and for a less expensive way to provide higher staff.
I was able to stop by the training over the weekend. There was an amazing turnout. I thought there were lots of volunteers there giving up their time to further their education. It was great to see. I think you have a lot of the same dreams for this department as I have, so thank you for that, and I think you're putting in a good effort for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I also was sorry to miss it this weekend, but it was a really fantastic effort. My question is, so you are proposing these 3 paid positions now, but once you hit, once you get to where you really see this department running how it should be, how many paid positions would be, and how quickly would you foresee that happening?
Thank you. I was actually going to say that. I lost my train when I was speaking a minute ago. There is no, I won't hide the fact that I would prefer to have 2 people at least working full-time on each day. The reason is because when someone takes a vacation, it provides a larger number of people, I hate to use the term, but that we could force to cover if we needed to. As far as how many we need, I'll go back to NFPA because they're the ones that say the numbers. You're looking at 4 to 7 people on a truck company, 3 to 7 people on an engine company. Now, that's not realistic. If we put on even 3 personnel per day, we probably have to hire 12 in order to do that. That's not realistic, but what is realistic is doing what we can afford and then utilizing our surrounding departments to assist when needed. We will never be able to work a structure fire with 2 people, even with 4 people, and we need more than that. So when we have those major incidents, we're going to have to still call for help. And we have various surrounding departments, and they call for our help as well. But depending on how the village does financially, it would be great, a good problem to have, I guess, if I came back, whether it be next year or the following year or whenever you all decide we can afford to look at possibility of hiring 3 more, which would be 1 more person per shift. I would like to keep the stipend position because as we've worked through this, we've seen value in integrating the 2 groups through the use of the stipend and then creating the 3 different companies throughout the department. So to say how quickly I would like to do that, I'd like to do it tomorrow, but I do understand that money is the factor, and until we can afford, I never want to be the fire chief that hires and then has to go to the family a period of time later and say, sorry, we can't afford you, we're going to have to let you go. I don't want to be that person. That's why I want to build up our volunteers. I think the way to do that is through our college, community college, as well as our high school, and help work with them who want to be firefighters to choose to, who want to be volunteer firefighters first, to choose to do it here.
I guess I just have a comment. First of all, since you've been on this team, you've been doing an amazing job, and you're doing exactly what you were tasked with doing. So I really appreciate that, and you're a really likable guy. When we were going through this exercise this summer, I think what I understood from a lot of my fellow trustees was they were wanting the money that we were allocating to potentially contract with Peoria to go to our personal department. And I understand that and respect it. And we've done that, but we've actually now exceeded that numerical amount. And I'm concerned with this deficit that we're seeing now for the first time since I've been on the board, and how, we have to have austerity measures to bridge the gap, or talking about raising sales tax, or, different things like that, and that just concerns me. So I think it's something that we all take very seriously, and we just have to keep a very close eye on those issues.
I understand that. I purposefully did not look at previous videos of what happened this summer. I heard about it. So I don't know the numbers you're talking about. And that philosophy of working with them, it would work well. The only concern is, and this was a concern that I had, that if we go in that direction, and if our volunteerism would fall off, fall apart, stop responding, that would potentially create a domino effect, and then we would be totally reliant, which would be very expensive. But that's why I'm hopeful. I do believe, I wouldn't put my name to this if I didn't. I do believe this will work.
I have some questions. First off, before I say what I want to say, I want you to understand that there's probably nobody that is more supportive of the fire department than my background, my family, and my upbringing. But I do have reservations about a lot of what we've talked about, and money is being one of them. We've already been through a cycle where we started an organization with the ambulance where we basically kind of drowned ourselves and had to get rid of it, and I do not want that to happen with the fire department. And that is where my concern comes in, is because I want us to be able to sustain it. A very blunt question to you is, every time you talk about going to a fire, you talk about the other three going to the fire. You will be attending these fires as well when you're on shift, correct?
There have been 2 structure fires since I've been here.
And you will, okay, so I wanted to confirm that, 'cause the way we keep talking is so there'll be 4 people on shift because you're the 4th one, correct?
Now, let me preface that. I can't guarantee you I'll get all of them.
Right.
But my life is centered around fire service. So if I'm available, I'll be here.
Okay. If somebody applies to join our fire department that is qualified already, do they still have to take the test?
Yes,
And that is just because of something,
that's the law.
okay, so no matter if they switch, they just took it for a different one?
Full-time positions.
Right.
Volunteer, no.
No, I'm talking about the full-time position. So if somebody just took the test for an area fire department but decided that we're paying $20,000 or $10,000 more than what they're making over there and come over to us because we're looking and we really want to hire somebody, they still have to retake that test again.
Yes, in the police department, it is allowed, but the state of Illinois does not allow lateral transfers in the fire service.
Okay. So my last question is, if you get somebody who is qualified, does great on the test, but they've only got maybe 2 to 3 years experience, are they going to go up to this $80,000 for the 10-year, or will they start at what a 3-year should probably be getting?
So the position is what we're paying. Because each day, that position is who is in charge of the vehicle.
Okay.
There is no way to determine, who we're going to get, and we're bound by law to go by the list. There are some provisions, and I think Chief might be able to speak to it better than I can, of when you can skip and things like that. But I've always heard that that's a delicate situation. So most places go number 1, number 2, and 3, so on. Depending on who gets hired, those are your options. But the police and fire commissions, they're open, so people can come to them. They are establishing, in fact, we have a meeting tomorrow morning, establishing rules, regulations about testing procedures.
Okay.
One thing that they are identifying are aspects that will help, I guess not mandate, but help support more seasoned people get to the number 1 or get to the higher positions. Can't guarantee it, but the preference points that are listed for the testing is highly centered on experience. Many departments will choose to place preference on EMS, like paramedic. We'll always have military, they have preference points. But what we've chosen, our Fire and Police Commission is choosing to do, is put the most points onto the experience to hope to draw that out. Now, I think what you're asking is, then can we vary the amounts we pay?
Yes.
So I've never been a part of a place that did that because you're always paying for positions. Whether someone has 2 years experience or 9 years experience, when you get to a structure fire, there's no question asked of how much experience you have. The position you're in is the job you do. So whether it be the risk to the person, the whatever their responsibility is, it comes with the position that you're in.
Okay.
Now, could we do that? We may, but I've never been in a department that does that, and I can see that it would cause some issues because they do work very closely. When I was in working 24-hour shifts, I spent more time with the men and women that I worked with than I did my family, because you're there 24 hours a day, every third day, but quite a bit of time. So you get to know each other really well. I guarantee they would know how much each other makes.
That was all I had.
Mr. Mayor, so Chief, I wanted to say, I was out there at the training both days this past weekend, and you mentioned camaraderie, and that was very on display there. You had a good crew. The training, I think when I was out there, you were walking me through, they were running wires so people could navigate these obstacles. It was pretty impressive. One of the concerns I wanted to ask you, though, that was brought up from some of my fellow trustees was the volunteer contributions and how those were being raised as well. You've mentioned, I think in the past, and I think today as well, that the volunteers are the linchpin in your model work, and how important the volunteers turning out and being on the engines are to your model. So can you go into that a little bit and why it's necessary that we raise some of their rates as well?
It is essential. If we hire 3 people for a 24-hour shift, there's one of them that's on duty. Now, that doesn't mean the other 2 can't come in if they're a construction fire. It just means that there's one there that's 24 hours a day. So it is imperative. I mean, it's absolutely essential that our volunteers come as well. We'll probably, a village this size will probably never get away from needing help, assistance from other communities. But it is essential for our volunteers to stay engaged. That camaraderie, oh man, I wish I had a video of it, because as you and I were standing there talking, you watched them, and we have a gentleman who's in the carpenter trade, and he was taking the opportunity to cut a big hole in the wall, talking about building construction, talking about the effects of fire on building construction, the age of the house and how that can help determine its probability of collapsing during the structure fire. So just watching them, they were like hanging on every word they said. There's a lot of, some people see it as goofing off. They joke around. They're adult kids, but it is because they have a very stressful job, and the way they deal with that sometimes is, whether it be joking or I guess playing well together. That closeness is essential. One of the biggest things in a full-time department, one of the most important times is dinner time, because you'll see that the company, wherever it is, East Peoria, Pekin, work for both, and been in Peoria stations, it's a very important time. They talk about the calls they've been on. They talk about calls that the captain may have been on years ago that relates to it. They talk about their families. Make sure that if someone's struggling, in there with something bad that they saw, if you have a child call or something like that, the firefighters they work with more than likely will see it before their family will, because you get to know them that well, and that's important. If you ever watch a group that works together all the time and they get a cardiac arrest, they will, I've run many cardiac arrests where I say 2 or 3 words total through the whole thing. And it's because you get to know each other so well. And I wish there was a way for me to quantify it or describe fully the effects or the increase in professionalism that provides. That camaraderie is everything. And I don't know if I've answered your question fully, but I think that if we, that's what I'm trying to build. And that's why when I looked at, get back to the stipend, when I look at building the model as a whole, I tried to figure out how do I take the full-time personnel and integrate them into the volunteer. And that was how I came up with that. As far as the stipend goes, there's one thing I wanted to make sure that everybody knew or knows is that we have 2, I guess, stipend groups. And Chief, if I say this wrong, please correct me. But we have the amount of money that our members receive when they come for a call from home or wherever, and then they sign in. And that is divided up between 12 months, and then in each given month, it's divided up amongst how many calls you went on. That is separate than what we're talking about, the 24-hour stipend positions. And I believe they're in the same line item, but those are two separate items, I guess. Is that correct, Chief?
Yes, correct. So, I'm sorry.
No.
So just a couple of things that we talked about at our budget discussion, our Saturday session, that are not in your budget, that we've talked about, you and I, over the phone. I worry about our aging equipment, the apparatus. I have been clued in by previous folks that our engines and our ladder trucks and things naturally are getting older. I have to admit it sometimes I myself that I am. But as with age, we're not maybe as good as we once were. So there was a song about that. But that being said, in the budget, we're not addressing that. So I am a little bit concerned that we're not putting away a little bit of money here and maybe on an annual basis so that when push comes to shove, we actually are in need of a replacement vehicle, that it's not such a shell shock.
Correct.
So can you hit on that a little bit, Chief?
Thank you. Yes, I'd love to. You are correct. We have older equipment, some older equipment. And we had one of them out at that training, and it was the one on the second day that was pumping, because we did spray some water inside. Later on, there was a gauge that it needs to be replaced, and that will happen, especially with the older vehicles. So one thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying for every grant that I can possibly receive that will help us. There are very few grants for equipment engines and trucks that are doled out to departments. In Illinois last year, there were only a handful. I think there's just a few, maybe 3 of them. But I think we would have a very good opportunity to be in line because of the age of some of our equipment, except we have 2 stations. The reason we have 2 stations, one reason we have 2 stations is, frankly, ISO. I asked that question early on about, how we utilize that station. It is important to ISO. Now, you may not know what ISO is, and me as a homeowner, I don't know much about ISO, other than knowing that if you're a business owner, it may mean quite a bit. Depending on what the ISO rating is of the fire department, helps keep your insurance costs down. So the closer it is to a 1, the better insurance rates you may have. Now, most homeowners, I have one of my good friends is a an agent, and he deals in residential. He had no idea what ISO was. But it is important. It can mean thousands and thousands of dollars per year for a business. So it's important for us to keep the second station because it helps keep our ISO rating down. The problem is our older engines are kept at that station. So if we utilize one of them and try to get it replaced, we could do that. And we could then move this engine down there. The only problem is this engine that is in this station won't fit into that station. So we would be trying to receive a grant that would replace an engine in a station. Is just, it would sit there and not be used. So that is one problem. We have a lasting, I think, Chief, do we have 3 years remaining on the apparatus that we're paying on? I will say this, our vehicles are in very good shape for the age that they are. The members have done a good job of doing what they can to keep them in good shape. I cannot guarantee you that later this year I won't be coming to you and saying that we have a major problem. Now, most problems can be fixed. We have a gentleman on our department that works as a mechanic. He keeps a very close eye on our vehicles. He does a great job. But I can't guarantee you we won't. And I do agree that we should start putting money aside. Having said that, I do have comfort in, what would I do? I don't expect that any of them are going to have catastrophic failures in the near future or this year. Can't guarantee they won't, but I don't expect it.
And last thing, Chief, so you mentioned tonight the NFPA standards. You and I have talked about OSHA standards. You mentioned they wouldn't be happy with what you were saying.
I think they'd understand.
Yeah, but with that reality, and I come from it now as, we want to protect the people that are protecting us as well. And we want to have our firefighters in a safe environment where I think OSHA says 2 in, 2 out, right?
Yes.
So when we are thinking from a board perspective on how we, keep the people safe that are keeping us safe, they have these standards for a reason, right?
Yes.
So do you see, if we're thinking toward the future and these standards are set, if I were a firefighter, I would expect that level of safety as well, right? I would expect that from me.
Yes.
As a policymaker. So do you see that in the future as well, that we try to move to these standards?
Yes, we should always try to move as close as we can. I had this conversation with one of our young members. I asked him if he was going to test, and he is. He did have a concern though, and his concern is, a 1 or even 2-person station. However, he also understands where we're going, and he's a very fiscally conservative person, and I believe, just talking to him, that he agrees with what we're doing, that instead of being afraid that we have to tell somebody a couple years from now that we can't afford them any longer, it's better to start, make sure that we can afford them. We should always work toward that, and you'll hear me say that as well. If we find ourselves at the front door of a structure fire, and we have 3 people there, or either we're waiting on it, whether it be an engine from Peoria or West Peoria down there, whoever to come as our backup, or some of our own volunteers to be there. If there is not a person inside, then we're not going to allow them to go inside. And that's hard. It's hard to do. I've had residents yelling at me before about, why aren't you going in? It's because of that, because I don't want to go to one of my firefighters' family and tell them that they died going inside trying to save stuff. If it's a person, we will. And I don't think there's many firefighters in this area that wouldn't. And I think people understand that. And there's a term in firefighting, it's risk a little to save a little, risk a lot to save a lot.
Thank you.
Just a few final questions. The comparables that we got, that you provided, do you have any comparables cities our size, because all of these are significantly larger than the city of the village of Peoria Heights. I think Canton may have been the closest one.
I wish I would have brought another form that I had. You're correct, except if you look at comparables in density, I believe there are only a few engines in Peoria that have a higher call volume per district than Peoria Heights is. Peoria Heights is an extremely busy department for the square mileage or the call volume. We're very busy. So take East Peoria, for example. There were 3, now there are 4 districts. When there were 3, they had a slightly busier density per call, I guess, average than Peoria Heights. Now that there are 4 stations, this will be busier. And I'm confident that Engine 4 in Peoria is busier. I'm confident that Rescue 1 is busier. But if you look at most of the vehicles in Peoria, I believe that ours are busier just as a comparison. So you're correct. The issue is I tried to get good numbers on a couple of them. One, I just couldn't. They've been in contract arguments for years, so I won't call them out. But one, I couldn't because of that. The other, similar situation, they don't post theirs. So there are 2 that I'm thinking of that I did attempt to get that are similar. Call volume, though, we are, especially related to density, we're pretty high.
Okay. In regard to the NFPA standards, do we still follow the standards for volunteer fire departments or paid fire departments? Because they are different.
They are different. And I'll tell you, if you ask me what are the standards, usually I have to look them up. I mean, I know the standards that, it's been a couple of months now that I looked at it, but the average standard in a structure fire is, now I can't remember, but it's a certain amount of people on scene within a certain period of time. You're correct that there are 2 different standards. Now, me as a resident, and that doesn't bode well, because if my kids are inside the structure or school, wherever they're at, I want there to be a standard, not 2 levels of standard. And you're correct, there are 2 levels. I don't like that. It feels like there should be a standard, but I understand it. I mean, because it is hard. It is hard to get people from home to the station to the scene.
Right, and that standard includes other town contributions, other companies coming from.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, which is the only way we would be able to accomplish the
Right.
standard.
Right, that's kind of what I was getting at. And I was one of the trustees that had concerns regarding the volunteer contributions, because the volunteer contributions that I was living in my mind from previous budgets was the amount of money that was divided up and split between who was going to calls. The stipend should be its own line item, in my opinion. We should separate those, because it did cause quite a bit of confusion for me, because it really isn't a volunteer contribution. At that point, it's I don't know what we would call it, it's a day stipend or something, but thank you for clearing that up, Chief.
Chief Sutton, I have one question for you. I know you told me on Saturday, and can you remind me what the sergeant pay is for the police department?
There's longevity, it's sergeants, so if you're talking about a 10-year sergeant, I know it's over 80,000. I don't have the numbers offhand as I did Saturday when you called.
Okay. I thought you had said 78, so if they're under 10 years, you're thinking they're more towards the 78.
I know that if we have a 10-year sergeant now that's over 80.
Okay.
Yes, and at the beginning, the sergeant's starting salary would be more in that range, more in the low 70s.
Okay. And I probably should know this, but how many sergeants do we have?
3.
And then what positions are higher than that?
Deputy chief and chief.
Okay, thank you.
One thing too, Mayor, and and Trustee Weisenberg had mentioned, meeting with Chief Decker. I would say, I think we're on a little bit of a time crunch as far as our budget is concerned. We have to publish our proposed budget for 30 days notice before the end of our fiscal year, which I think is coming up. So we have to have that done for 30 days prior. So if we're going, if individually, and I know, a couple of us have met individually with the chief already, but I would encourage that to happen ASAP, because I think that we need to publish in the newspaper by the next meeting, right? I mean,
I believe you're correct, but budget amendments are appropriate right up to the day of passing the budget, correct, Council?
Correct.
Anyone else?
I have something on a different topic.
Fire, though, or?
No, nothing else with
Okay,
that.
go, on other business, Trustee DeVore?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So I do know that we are on a time crunch to determine what our sales taxes are going to be. So we have until April 1st to make a decision if we want to change anything with our sales taxes. So I feel like that's something that has to be determined by our next meeting if we want to do that. I did have a comparison, and we are behind what the city of Peoria is right now, a ½ cent. So when we talked about having stable revenue that could come in, we could move up to where the sales tax is for the city of Peoria, be the same, and it would increase, I think, 150.
Yeah, we're behind 1/4%, and that would generate 156,000, yes.
So I feel like that's something that would be an easy stream of revenue, and this isn't us putting more on the residents. This affects more people who are visiting here, as well as the residents, but it spreads it out a little bit. So I wanted to know where my fellow trustees felt on considering raising the sales tax.
Trustee DeVore, at our Saturday session, you had mentioned eliminating the garbage.
I still believe we should do that.
So this would be in addition
Yeah.
to that as well? Okay. Just wanted to...
And I think we're behind Peoria, but we're also behind Washington, East Peoria. I believe all those surrounding towns have a higher sales tax rate, is that correct? My understanding is they were.
Yes, they
Yes,
do.
I can tell you, I had it pulled up and then my phone shut off, so I lost it, but
I guess my comment while you're pulling that up, Trustee DeVore, is that that's helpful, and a quarter percent doesn't seem like that much, but $150,000, these moves are all in response to the deficit, which is created by what we're doing here. So,
Well,
is this just, did you want to say something?
no, I was just going to mention that some of those are lower. Trustee Weisenberg, like Washington's at 9%.
9%?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we're at 11.75. Bartonville's 8.50. So even though we're not the lowest, we're not
The
highest either. We are a quarter behind Peoria. So we're.
Would this be, so I know there are 2 business development districts that have, what, a 1% tax? So the 1% is on top of
Sales tax.
Yes.
sales tax?
Yeah, our rate's 8.75. When you add in all the TIF, the BDD, it goes to 11.75. So I'm giving you the highest. What all the other communities have done as well. I didn't give you the low end. I just gave you with everything added on.
Okay.
so
yeah.
even with the TIF and BDD, we're still a quarter behind Peoria.
Correct.
Yes.
So I guess what I was getting at is that, a 1/4% doesn't seem like that much, but it's also, not that $150,000 is nothing, but it's not that great of a addition to our budget. I wouldn't want to see us exceed anything like that. I think that it would be a downward spiral for our local businesses because, we have a lot of people that come here, residents and people from outside of the community, and it puts these businesses at a disadvantage for attracting patrons, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think so. I think, 1/4%, I don't think it's, when they come for the quality of the product, and I don't think they're really worried about a 1/4%. I mean, 100, what was it, 150,000?
Well, my point is.
Every
anything above
little
that.
bit
Anything
counts.
above that, yeah. And I feel like the 150 is based on numbers that we did this year, correct? So with some of the advancements that we've had in our community, it could potentially be even more. Another reason I'm for this is because we have to keep in mind that currently, right now, the state is determining taking away the grocery tax, which would cost us over $300,000 in more deficit if that passes.
So that's going to result in another not property tax, sales tax increase. Because how would we make up?
That's what I'm worried, what you're getting at is what I'm worried
Right,
about.
I worry if we raise it now, and then J.B. Pritzker torpedoes our budget, and now we have a $300,000 hole.
But I believe if we don't raise it now, we can't raise it until when?
Yeah, well, you could raise it quarterly because if you want it to go in effect in July, it would need to be April 1st.
April 1st.
So if we miss that, it jump to the next quarter, so.
I don't want to keep raising our sales tax repetitively, you know?
Right.
Well, let me end this and we'll move on. So any of you want to propose something for a future agenda, I'm happy to put it on the agenda and for action, and we can take it from there, Trustee, if you like.
I mean, I think we have to decide on it, so I guess, yes, at our next meeting, I would like it on the agenda.
You'll have that. Madam Clerk, would you please
Correct.
make a note of that?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Oh,
We're on old business.
One old business, I know we kind of have in limbo the pump house. As far as that, do we have a direction or?
It's not in limbo. We're working on a lease as we speak, and we'll probably have something to vote on at the next meeting. We're waiting on attorneys.
Sorry, Mark.
Those attorneys.
Anything you want?
It's drafted but not approved by the time.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything you want to add to that, Wayne?
Agenda at the next meeting, 2 weeks from now.
Thank you.
Would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think that's it. I think that the prospective tenant, there's some interior things code issues we need to kind of confirm too. I think but I think the agreement at this point is fairly straightforward, so,
We have an agreement in concept.
yes.
Thank you.
Any other old business? Let's get into new business, and if there's no objection, I'm going to move the piece of other business up front, which is approval of a donation in the amount of $500 for the Peoria Heights Grade School PTO Easter egg hunt. Trustee Weisenberg, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Sure. I move to approve a donation of $500 to the Peoria Heights Grade School PTO.
Second. Go ahead. And we have some guests, I think, so we...
Yep. Just real quickly, before I pass this off to Ms. Thornton, I believe. The donation request before us today is a donation to the Peoria Heights Grade School PTO, allowing them to organize an Easter egg hunt for the children in our community. I should know the date, but I don't know it offhand. But
Please come up, and you want to tell us about the event, please? I don't mean to interrupt you, Trustee.
I'm Gloria Painter, I'm not Katie. So the event is actually this Friday the 15th, so not this Friday, but next Friday. We're going to have it starting at 6 o'clock, and we're going to do 2 different waves. So we'll have like the younger kids come in first, like grades probably K through 4 or 5, and then we'll separate it to another wave of 5 through 8 if any of them show up. We'll have the Easter Bunny there for picture opportunities and stuff like that. So the eggs are needed for the whole purpose. We are constantly raising money, but with our clientele at school being a little bit lower socioeconomic status, it's hard to generate the same type of numbers with fundraising that we see some from other schools. So last year, I had some of the high school students help with putting together the eggs, and they were just in really bad shape. So we got rid of our eggs last year and have been fundraising, but would be a great help to have some assistance with putting this on for the kids in the community.
Thank you both for doing this. Trustee
The
Weisenberg.
PTO is entirely funded by fundraisers
Yeah.
and donations.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention.
Not a problem.
Any discussion?
You mentioned kids from the entire community.
Yes.
So across Peoria Heights, not necessarily.
Yep, correct. You open it up to everyone. Typically, we share it to our page, and then it goes out on Facebook, and we always welcome anyone to come. A lot of kids bring cousins and stuff like that. My youngest child goes to District 150, my older two go to District 325. He's always there. Yeah, we love to have any kids in the community come out and just kind of provide them with a free event to come and have some fun and get
It's
some
also
little
worth
candy
noting
and
that
prizes.
her youngest son is wheelchair bound, so they do have eggs for
Yeah, so we
children.
always do, we do extra, just in case there are other kids there, but we do some eggs with helium balloons attached so that kids who are in wheelchairs don't have to get down to the ground to be able to get them. So my son can kind of wipe by, or roll by and swipe them and grab them. So it's a lot of fun to see. We only have one student who attends the grade school in a wheelchair, but his mom was really excited about that. The first year said he had never gotten to do an egg hunt before, so it was kind of a really fun thing for him to be able to do it.
Will you guys be doing the bake sale as well?
Not this year. Sorry. Most years we do the bake sale.
It flopped last year, so this year, yeah.
Typically at the egg hunt is our least purchased. I think because everyone's getting eggs filled with candy and stuff like that, that they're like, you know, not wanting to buy their kids cookies as well. So this year we decided to forego that and just offer.
It is a very popular event.
It is.
Again, thank you both very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert?
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. We are still at new business. We have a piece of economic development business. It is discussion of consultant services for the active transportation plan. Trustee Kazam?
Thank you, Mayor. So the village was requesting help with the active transportation plan through which we will intend to improve existing infrastructure, bicycle, pedestrian, and transit infrastructure. And we intend to modernize and identify gaps in the existing service and analyze efficiencies. We look to Tri-County to help us with this. It's a $60,000 budget with a $10,000 match, which will go to Tri-County for their help with this. We have held a few meetings. We interviewed, first of all, we put together a group to look at the different plans, including myself, Michael Bruner from Tri-County, who's here this evening, a representative from Bike Peoria, and other representatives from Tri-County. And we have selected a plan, and that's in your packets here today. I'm really excited about it. It should be complete by the end of December, I believe. And so that's pretty much it. Our selected firm is Lardner Klein, and I recommend moving forward with this.
Michael, welcome. You mind coming up, please? Michael Bruner is a planner with the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission who does all of the planning for a three-county area. They do an awful lot of work for us, including Michael. You've handled a number of challenges for us, so
Yes.
Anything else you would add?
No, I would just add that Tri-County has worked with Lardner Klein in the past, and they have been a fantastic firm to work through or work with. This is a grant from Tri-County, so we will, once we've reached a contract negotiations with the selected consultant, we will present a MOU for you all to approve for the $10,000 match. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Trustee Kazam or Mr. Bruner?
Trustee Kazam, $10,000 match. We have currently, and I know we're going to do some cutting hopefully on that, but we have a $777,000 budget deficit. Do we know where that $10,000 is coming from?
I have to refer to Stephanie, but this is coming out of this year's budget.
fiscal year,
So, is that right, Stephanie?
It would depend on when we received the billing for it, but there was $10,000 included in the next year's budget for this. I believe it's in the admin budget, and I can get you the exact line item. in a
You don't
second.
have to.
Okay, it's there though,
Okay,
I promise.
thank you.
Anyone else?
So, Trustee Kazam, could you explain, dumb this down for me, so what is this for?
So they're going to, and Michael can speak to this as well, and so can Wayne Aldrich, but we are looking at it's actually, I hate to say this to you, Trustee Weisenberg, but it's part of a first phase to
That's
put us in
what
a
I'm worried
position,
about.
put us in a position to get later grants, which this is part of the step, part of the process. But we're looking at multimodal transportation, so cycling, pedestrians. It also identifies, ADA compliance and sidewalks, that type of thing. As we embark on the next thing we'll hear about through Trustee Reichert, the Prospect Road project, this all ties in together.
Okay,
I
so
don't know if-
there's no guarantee of a phase 2.
Well, I hope so. I think this sets us up for a much more, we're in a much better position. I don't know if Director Aldridge would agree
Yeah, in
with
this
that.
case, it's not a formal phase 1, but it will lead to a capital plan or a plan for bikes and peds that we can then use to get more grant money, for example, enhancement grants through the state, things like that. So it's a more direct route than on some projects where you have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 kind of thing.
Right, there's just-
But it's something, again, it was in the comp plan. It kind of matches the state's doing a ATP plan right now.
Yes.
So it kind of, is more of a regional thing too. So it's a really good time to do this, and it really plays into Prospect Road and some of the other roads we're looking at to really promote this kind of transportation for modes that we normally don't think about or haven't been thinking about.
And this certainly isn't a criticism to you, Director Aldridge, or to anyone on this board, but since I've been here, we spent a lot of money on engineering and Plan Zeros and Phase 0 and Phase 1.
I think it's just part of the process.
Is it just Illinois?
No, I think it's how every project is. I mean,
No.
think about if you're doing a project in your own home, you have to consult an architect first, and you have to be ready with your plans, and, that's just the process.
Yeah, the comp plan identified some big visions, so the board has some big visions, and I think they're all appropriate. And to get the money that it takes to do these big projects, it's going to be federal funds. It's not going to be state funds, it'll be mostly federal funds, and that's how you get it. That's the process the feds have laid out, and I think doing this planning sets us up well, certainly to get the other federal funds needed.
But those federal and state policymakers, in my opinion, they want to make sure that the money they're appropriating in their budget is spent wisely, that when they award those grants, that you actually have a plan for the use of it, and they want to see how it's going to benefit the community. I don't know, can you help with that, Michael?
Yeah, I can add to that. So most grant applications, when you apply, say you want to put in a new bike path somewhere, they're going to ask if this project has gone through the public participation process, and the easiest way to check that box is by saying that it's in a current plan that the village has completed, because the planning process goes through an extensive public participation process, so it's very easy to prove that, yes, we've already had the public vet this project, and it's something that we would like to see. So really, if you don't have this plan, the likelihood of being successful in future grant applications is significantly reduced.
Michael, as far as, sorry. So, Michael, as far as this, I have my comprehensive plan, and from what I understand, we're just further narrowing the scope on this, because as Director Aldridge said, the comprehensive plan does address these, but at like a 30,000 foot level. This is, we're getting into the weeds.
Yes.
And the idea is we make this investment, 40,000 from Tri-County, 10,000 from the village, that it will pay off from a grant down the road to fund this project.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But any investment has a maybe, right? So, so the idea is that hopefully this pays off for us.
Yes, yep.
And one last thing I would add is that I think since its inception, whether it's IDOT or a Department of Transportation from any other state, their job primarily was moving automobiles quickly from point A to point B, And I think policymakers at the federal and state level have recognized that other modes of transportation are important as well. So pedestrians and bicycles now, I believe IDOT, or state policymakers insist that IDOT also have a policy for those other modes of transportation. Is that correct?
That is very correct, yes.
Okay, so we will put this on for action when the agreement's ready. Is that correct then?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Don't go away. So anything else under economic development, Trustee Kazam?
No, Trustee Reichert will speak to the next issue that we...
All right. Anything else, Wayne, under economic development you want to report?
Yes. We did receive 2 proposals for the zoning code rewrite and form-based code last week, so we'll be sitting down looking at those proposals again for a selection to do that work.
Thank you. Okay, now we're at Public Works. It's a discussion of a consultant selection for Prospect Rose Phase 1 engineering. Trustee Reichert?
Okay, so Trustee Kazam and I met with the Tri-County Regional Planning, and after narrowing down from 5 down to 3 engineering firms, we narrowed it down to selecting Hanson. We felt like their overview of the life cycle of the project was the strongest, and basically what this is coming out of is from community project funding. Darren LaHood looks like got us $2 million in funding through that, and we have to match it with $500,000. And this is a phase 1. I'm pulling the Band-Aid off for you before you ask. So the total funding for this would end up being a $2,500,000 project. Our responsibility is from Lake to Kingman, and then I believe Peoria covers the other direction down to War. And this is ultimately like a full renovation of Prospect, infrastructure and all, which is in desperate need anyway. Is there something, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's good. I mean, we've talked about streetscapes, that would be included. We've talked about underground infrastructure, that's included, including water. So a very comprehensive project, and again, partners in the future, certainly, hopefully the city of Peoria and others on this project. So very important project and certainly needed. So I think it's, again, a great first step to get the big money to do this road in the future.
One of the things when we met with the different engineering groups that at least I tried to focus on, and I know Trustee Kazam was on the same page as me, was the engineering skills when it came to our infrastructure, because we know that as pretty as you can make it, it's not going to make a difference if you got to tear it up in a few years. So we wanted to make sure that we picked the right place to put a really good infrastructure down and figure that out.
That's right. Yeah, we have failing infrastructure, water, et cetera, and so that needs to be addressed whether or not we want to or not. So this will address that issue.
Yeah, that's, after a lot of, we questioned them a lot about that too, so we felt like we're on a good page, so anybody?
And in this case, it does cover the NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act, which you can't get a dime of federal money without completing that. So big project, good consultant. I've worked with Hanson in the past, Hanson Professional Services, so, and a good team from what I hear. I didn't sit in interviews or selection, but really quality team. So the next steps would be to negotiate actual scope of services and a contract, and then bring that contract back to you. Have also been working with IDOT. I've got some comments or information for that agreement too. So we'll have an agreement with IDOT as well as.
Another thing that we kind of brought up to them in the interview process too was that, redoing Prospect Road would greatly affect our businesses. And, this is kind of what they called the road diet plan. And ultimately, will help the businesses in the long run, but in the meantime, we did tell them to be, mindful of when we go to start this project and the tearing up of the roads and stuff to, figure out a way that it doesn't impact business to the max and try to work with you guys too. So you might be hearing from some of them at some point during this process as well.
Very good point, thank you. Go ahead, Chris Weisberg.
You go ahead.
The $500,000 that we matched for this grant opportunity, have we already paid that, or is that?
We have not paid it.
We have not paid that?
No.
What
But it-
fiscal year is that?
But it is in the budget that we looked at the other day.
Next year's budget. And I believe most of Director Aldridge's funding will be, for the matches are coming out of BDD and TIF, correct?
Well, we'll have to discuss that, I'm not sure, but that's a potential for funding if IDOT, sometimes they get weird about funding sources, so we'll have to confirm that.
In the Phase 1 engineering plan, I know it's been controversial in the past when we've talked about narrowing Prospect. When are we narrowing Prospect? Is that the plan? If that's not the plan, or if it's still in discussion, are we going to have those discussions publicly?
Yes, nothing is set in stone on what exactly they're doing. They kind of gave us their imagery of what they saw doing, but it ultimately is our decision. They work for us.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we'll complete this Phase 1 engineering, and then we'll have a plan that we can introduce to the public.
And part of this Phase 1 is a series of meetings with the community to get input from key stakeholders and people in the community to really, business owners, that type of thing.
And I think that's another thing that typically IDOT requires is lots of public meetings and input, so.
Now, I will say that I think one of the ways we got this money is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Aldrich, to have a bike lane in there. I mean, this multimodal lane is part of the, incentive to get money.
I mean, that's really a part of the complete process anymore, is to certainly consider all these modes, and that helps us with funding as well, in the future.
Yes.
So, and it's the right thing to do. That's kind of the bottom line, is it helps people's health, it helps save transportation dollars, it helps pollution, all these things. So, and it's, it was one of the main priorities of the comp plan too, when that was done. So, really, hopefully everybody, can feel good about this project and we can move on. And again, it's the type of project that the feds and the state really support.
Yeah.
As well as other partners that we'll be involved with, and really will help support the businesses along Prospect Road and the commercial corridor. And so I think it's a project that I'm, real proud of, and hopefully we can get this done.
And I wanted to mention too, that the first call I received from Brad Stoutler, who at that time was Congressman Hood's chief of staff, one of the first questions he asked is if we had a comprehensive plan in place, and that really made a difference in speeding this up and getting it funded. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, one thing for the selection committee, the members here, and I think, Michael, you were on that as well?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So when this came to us, I mentioned my emphasis on wanting to have local, we have a lot of engineering firms based here in the Heights, and I wanted to just ask a little bit about that. I see in the criteria on which you guys selected, one of them was you had 10% local presence. When you talk about local presence, what's the radius of local presence, and where were we saying what's local?
In town is what we're really thinking of, and Hanson has an office here in town that we deal with on a regular basis.
In Peoria or Peoria Heights?
In Peoria.
When
yes.
Tri-County says local, I think you mean within 3 counties, correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking of our entire urbanized area.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we look forward to that. Go ahead, Chris.
If I may, Mayor, again, thanks to Michael Bruner. Michael kind of led the charge on these couple of selections, and I know Rima also with regional planning.
Yep.
And again, thanks to all the other folks that helped with this selection process.
Yep. Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, and our best to Mr. Miller when you see him. Trustee Reichert and Trustee Kazam, lots of extra homework on that, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else under Public Works? Trustee Reichert?
No, that is it.
Superintendent Chandler?
Nope.
You're awful quiet. Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. We've already taken care of others, so we would be at miscellaneous business. Any miscellaneous business come from the board? No? All right. We are back open for any general comments from the audience. If anyone would like to make just a general comment to the board from the audience, please come forward, give your name and address, and try and keep your remarks under 5 minutes. The Landrys, all right. Welcome, gentlemen.
My name is Bo Landry. I reside at 4610 North Miller Avenue in Peoria Heights.
My name is Newt Landry. I live in Peoria. I'd like to just talk real quick about the sales tax issue that you all were talking about. And I can speak to this from being a restaurant owner. And a lot of times people don't realize the amount of expenses that restaurants have incurred over the years. Credit card increases, we have delivery fees now from all of our vendors, and on and on and on, food costs and so on and so forth. And when a customer gets a receipt now, it has a lot of additional items on there that we're asking the customers to pay. And a lot of businesses are doing this now as a way to frankly stay in business. And I believe increasing the sales tax is just going to make that stick out more on any receipt that a customer gets. And I know there's other ways to derive income from the area, but I think this is one that really should be paid close attention to, because frankly, I don't know if it's necessary, speaking from a restaurant owner.
And to get more to the point, Trustee Gett, I know you mentioned the increase to the sales tax along with Trustee DeVore. What was the real reasoning behind that? Is it the sourcing of funding for the potential fire department that we're trying to build?
Well, I think it comes into a lot of things, right? So we're working with a deficit, and we have done a lot of things already, but we have a lot of things coming ahead of us. We have state mandates that say we have to remove lead from the streets, which, due to our failing infrastructure, is something we have to do to keep everybody here, the restaurants and the homeowners. This community said they wanted to fund their own fire department. That's a large part of it. And then doing things like increasing ADA compliance and reworking the Prospect Road, which is also going to help the business district. All of these things cost money. And I think as a whole, this town asks for that, but it also, we have to have a way to pay for it. I myself also am a business owner. I have 2 businesses myself, which also accrue sales tax. So I do understand that there are a lot of things that we are occurring, but I feel that the people that are frequenting our community are also spending a lot of money in the city of Peoria at the same sales tax percentage. I'm not pushing that we would go above that. I'm not asking us to take a whole percent on, but I live the sales tax life as well. But all these amenities we want in this town, they come at a cost.
Trustee, if I could jump in and just answer that as well. I know it was directed at you too. But when your customers come into the village of Peoria Heights, there's several things they expect. They expect to be able to drive on the roads, they expect police protection, and they expect fire. Who do they expect to pay for those services? If not sales tax revenue. I mean, there is a significant criminal element just south of Peoria Heights. And I know businesses in Peoria Heights would not fare very well if we didn't have police. In this budget for next year, it includes an additional police officer. Are you saying that?
I don't think that was mentioned. I think I would like for you to provide a breakdown of how the budget deficit was incurred, specifically focusing on the significant increase in the fire department's expenses. Can you review those line items publicly?
I'd have no opposition to discussing those publicly, but on the flip side, I don't think your patrons would appreciate their building being on fire and no fire department.
Well, I can answer that question because we did have a meeting the other day, which is now you're able to view that meeting online. So that could answer a lot of those questions, and I think that would be more informative than us just sitting here tonight and not having those numbers in front of us. You'd be able to have that information in that way.
Sure. Thank you for your comment. Have there been any discussions or efforts made to explore alternative revenue sources of cost-saving measures to mitigate the deficit?
Yes.
In that meeting, you will see us go fairly through several lines and taking things out. Like, we did go through that budget more with a fine tooth comb. Like Trustee Wiggington said, we were here 3 hours kind of going through that. So again, like Trustee Kazama said, watching that, I think you'll see that we are trying to reduce spending in other areas as well as increase some revenue. Trustee Weisenberg, I think you had us down to like $146,000 deficit. So we're just trying to work with that, removing that $146,000 deficit while maintaining a paid department. We have more ice pigging scheduled in the next year to help with some more of our water infrastructure, as well as that, like the lead remediation. So that's kind of where you're seeing that, but we did look at some cost saving things.
And we didn't record that meeting.
Correct.
It's recorded, yes.
It's not recorded.
Oh, it is not?
It is not recorded. Sorry, I tried to.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see it.
It's not recorded, unfortunately. I thought it was. I
did
told
too.
several people it was, but
Okay.
it turns out it wasn't. But I believe our budget is public information. We can give you a copy of the budget.
That's correct.
And one thing you will not find in this budget is overspending or fluff. We're really super lean. We're not like the city of Peoria. We don't have 10 departments and crazy spending on everything you can imagine. The budget in the Village of Peoria Heights comes down to streets, police, and fire. That's it.
A village as the whole, as a board in whole, we are with the fire department trying to keep that spending as minimal. That's why there was such a huge emphasis at the beginning of the meeting on what it is he's doing and how he is spending that money. We also, on that budget, does not include a couple of the new businesses that are opening and have opened. The tax revenue that we'll be generating from them will help with that deficit as well, but we just don't know how much. So we are planning for the worst, hoping for the best. If that makes sense.
Certainly, yeah, thank you.
When we sat down, first of all, we didn't record the last special meeting we had. That's the reason why this one wasn't recorded either. So we've been consistent in that. But to answer your question, Bo, when we did sit down on that special meeting, the deficit was, 10 times that we got it down to that amount. So we did make some cuts to get it down there, but we're still looking at a deficit. So we're not quite there yet, but the board did look at a lot of different things and cut it out, so.
Well, and Mike Bailey did take notes and
There's a post on our website. You can go and look. It's kind of an analysis of the meeting to kind of break it all down for you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Let me put my arms around this. I appreciate you being here, and this is good, healthy dialogue, but this is really public comment. I would encourage you both to reach out individually to trustees and express your opinion. We're happy they're here tonight, but it's really your chance to speak your mind, and so us getting in a debate with you is not really the purpose of this, but go ahead, you've still got some time left.
No, I think that answers all my questions, Mayor. Thanks so much for everyone being here tonight. Nice to meet you all as well.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Barb Malaccio. I'm actually here this evening wearing two hats. One for the Peoria Heights Chamber of Commerce, which I am currently presiding as president, and also as a business owner of Exhibit Gallery, who has been a tax-paying business for 10 years. So some of the comments that I have this evening, there may have been some things that have been addressed in the previous meeting, some things that were brought up today as well, and maybe there's even some misunderstanding that I may have and others may as well. One of the biggest things, that came up this evening is with the proposed, a potential proposed of the tax increase. Just the thought of that just made me cringe as a business owner. So I am within the business district development. I already have people who say, why is my tax more at your place than what it is when I go down the street than what it is? And even though you're considering that 0.25%, it makes a difference. I already hear people say that they're comparing us to Chicago with the rates that we have. I believe that there would be other ways to do that other than raising the taxes with that. So just my comment on that as well. And also, too, I believe Trustee Reichert had mentioned this, that we are going to be taxed in a different sense with new construction that would be happening. And I realize that things need to happen within the infrastructure to make our village better. But if you're going to raise our taxes that's going to affect us as business owners. And then if it goes into real estate taxes, it's the same thing. If you own the property that you are on, you raise those taxes, you're going to have to pass that on to your clients. And even myself, I am a tenant, and we have the discussion with the landlord that I have. He's very open about the taxes that he pays. If his taxes are increased at the property level, then that is going to put back on your tenants. And also too, one of the things that I find incredibly frustrating is we have businesses that are coming into this area very freely that are financial institutions, that are attorneys. What are they taxed? They have maybe their tax property that if they're owning that, but some of these that are tenants are coming in. So what is it, to them? It's hard, and I don't know if I'm getting my point completely across with that, but it is very frustrating when you see large financial and attorneys coming in and they are not doing anything to contribute to that sales tax. We need more retail, and if we keep raising taxes, we're going to clear all of us out, because we're not going to, as a small business owner, we're not going to be able to afford the rent that it is. And our rent, people say, oh, your rent is so much cheaper here than what it is in other parts of the community. It's not. We're paying fair prices with our rent, and it is just going to increase. So just the thought of any tax, whether it be through the sales tax or the property tax, I strongly encourage you to really think through that. Another thing that I want to make note on, and maybe this is something I'm misunderstanding with myself, with the pay structure, and I guess I'm specifically addressing the fire department, that if there is a salary base, it is $80,000 across the board. I just kind of look within my business. I have an assistant who has been with me for quite a long period of time. She has gained her experience and the pay that she works for. So she's worked in a job and now she's making $25 an hour. I have somebody new who is coming in and maybe has worked for only 1 or 2 years, that they would be receiving that same salary is just very surprising to me. So again, just, maybe some misunderstanding at my point, where potentially there could be, a level of salary based on experience that you have. And I do realize if you're going into a burning fire, you're going in risking your life at the same level, but still that experience, anyway, maybe it's a conversation that we need to have as far as understanding that a little bit more, because it's almost, if you're in a medical profession and you're paying an intern, $50,000, and you're paying the doctor that same $50,000, like where's that balance, that difference? So I would like to entertain with the fire chief a conversation there just for more clarification for myself. One of the things that was mentioned in a post that I had seen that I believe was driven from Mike Bailey was to potentially cut the police staffing from the police department. So I can tell you from a business owner and also being with the Chamber of Commerce, we don't have the violence and the crime that we have in this community because we have the police officers that we have. I get slips in my door of a police officer who is trying to make entry into my business, and I get that slip saying, okay, it is safe, it is secure. So it makes me feel secure of owning a business here in Peoria Heights. When we have, on behalf of the Chamber, we have events that we have that need police presence, yes, there's payment that needs to be paid to those officers, but the money that brings into any events that we have here into the village would completely, I believe, offset those expenses that we had. And I'm not sure if that was a listing or if there were comments that were made within, as far as the police presence there. So definitely, one thing that I would strongly feel against is cutting any police force, whatsoever. We need that presence. We don't get the riffraff here in this area because they're seen. Another thing that I had seen in that post as well that I believe again was driven from Mike Bailey was the potential lack of there being Christmas decorations. So I was one of the starters, the founder of the Kringle Market here in Peoria Heights. Are we going to take the Christmas out of the village and for the kids? So you might think, are we just going to, am I mistaken when I say that? But I believe that was an item that was in there. The Christmas decorations, people come to the village for that. We are bringing people to this area to help celebrate businesses. They want to be here, they want to come. And I just feel like if we take that away, and then, another thing that really kind of folds into, as a Chamber of Commerce, we are business-oriented. Any Chamber of Commerce that you see is business-oriented. We created events so that we could interact the community with the businesses. And that's one of the things that we did with the Kringle Market, with the celebration that we hosted with the 125th. If you didn't have the Chamber of Commerce, who would do those events for you? And I truly say that. There, as a business owner, and I have a very physical business, there are so many weeks throughout the year that I put more of my time and energy into the Chamber of Commerce and events that happen within this village, and willingly doing so, but at zero compensation or acknowledgement from it, because I love to have a business in here, and I like to see that camaraderie that we have. And if we take money away from events or the Christmas decorations or some things that people might think are frivolous, they're not going to want to come to this area. They're not. So anyway, and then another point that I have made with the gaming licenses, that was, again, a comment that was made. I hope that is something that does not incur, to me, I feel like it would just bring riffraff into it, and then we really need to have even more police officers on staff. And then another thing that I want to make mention too, just having a business on Prospect. I love being in the limelight. I was very fortunate that with the situation, I had to move very quickly, and I was fortunate to have a space on Prospect. But with that becomes parking issues. And I know we were talking about, with infrastructure and capital expenses and what have you, there has to be something that is done with the parking here in Peoria Heights. So anyway, so I would be open to, any discussions with anyone that could clarify any matters with this. And like I said, I'm speaking on behalf of the gallery and also the chamber.
Ms. Malacio, I know what you said, Mr. Mayor, but I want to just address a couple of things with you, if I could. So one, Christmas decoration. That is absolutely correct, that what you saw was written that way. That is incorrect on what we were talking about. We're not replacing our Christmas decoration. They're from the 70s, 80s.
Okay.
We're not replacing them. We're just telling Chris and his crew to keep putting the old ones up.
Okay.
So
we need
and get a tetanus shot. But they're still going to be there. Now, you also mentioned a couple of public safety, which is my committee, so I want to just address that, and I think Mr. Landry also mentioned that too. So as far as police, we're not cutting police. We have, as Trustee Weisenberg said, we've got another officer that we're going to be filling. This board, and I'm privileged to serve on it, takes public safety very seriously. So we will be adding an additional police officer to our force. We understand exactly what you said, that it is imperative that our business owners, but also the customers that go to those feel comfortable and safe and continue to come back to Peoria Heights. Mr. Landry had mentioned about the fire department and how seriously we feel about supporting.
We're under public comment.
Just real quickly, so Mr. Landry, in 2021, our fire department was funded to the tune of $222,000. In this budget that we're looking at, it's currently at $1.4 million. So that, as far as public safety is concerned, that is, how strongly we feel about it. But yeah, so those are the current numbers, and so you don't have to worry about.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Barb, I'm available to meet with any time. But Trustee Kazam and Wayne and myself have walked at least once. I've walked a couple of times on parking issues, and we've considered calling a meeting of the business owners to discuss parking challenges. And
Yes.
I expect that in the next month or so, maybe sooner. We recognize that.
Okay, yeah, and I would be more than willing as a business owner to be a part, of any information, any study, any, potential areas that may become, because it is so important as a business owner, because, we have restaurants which are wonderful. I patronize those restaurants, but when we hit a certain time, at lunch, and even more so when I was located further down the street, the last thing you want to say is the client said, "Oh, I couldn't find any place to park, so I'll come back." And we just hope and pray that that client is going to come back. So that is one thing too, with the businesses that we have, to be sure that we do have some place, where they can park safely and be comfortable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for all you do. We're still under public comment. Anyone else? Anyone else? I do want to say I appreciate both of you being here tonight. We have some challenges. We have some financial challenges. We will get through those. We want to hear from the business community, so please come back. Please call or email all of us. Our emails are on the village website, so we look forward to a dialogue with all of you. And if there's no other public comment, I'm going to close comments from the audience. We did have an executive session on the agenda. That's not needed tonight, so I'm going to look to Trustee Gett.
What was that, sir?
I'm looking for motion.
For
Adjourn?
executive session?
No, there's no need for one. Trustee Gett.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.